Good evening and welcome once more to the Open Door Show. What a pleasure to have you all here this evening. The Open Door Show, of course, from Property CEO, which I'm glad it is because that's the screens we got behind us. If it was from somewhere else, it would be a bit of a mess up this evening, wouldn't it? Anyway, my name's Richie Clapson and I'm here with the other half, not the better half, the other half of Property CEO, Mr. Ian Child. Do you want to say good evening, Mr. Ian Child?
Good evening, Mr. Ian Child. Hope you're all well.
Oh, yeah, full of humour, always. Look, guys, it's great to have you here. And just in case this is your first time and looking down the list of names, I think some of you I do not recognise. What have you let yourself in for this evening? Well, let me tell you, this is 45 minutes. Our aim is for 45 minutes of non-stop positivity, quite quick, no messing around. It'll be over before it's even started. That's a good thing, by the way. That's a positive thing, not a negative. And it's all set around the theme of business and property development. Isn't that right, Mr. Child, sir?
It certainly is. Richie and I run a company called propertyCEO, and basically our day job is training people how to become successful small-scale property developers. Of course, many people like the idea of property development, but they often worry it's going to be a bit risky, very complicated. So basically our job is to give them the support and training that they need so they can do it as safely and as successfully as possible. We also think there's an amazing opportunity lying just around the corner right now, which is going to create a lot of wealth, a lot of opportunity for developers. So we want to help people find out all about that and of course to see if development might be a good fit for them.
Wise words as ever, Mr. Child. Look, that's right. Of course, you know, we've got a global pandemic. We're in and out of that thing. I don't know what's going on. And of course, we've got a recession. Well, we know we're going into that one, but don't worry. The thing is, recessions are great opportunities, but only for those that seek them out at the start rather than hang around and wait to follow the rest of the crowd, okay? We're not belittling what's going on out there. It's all going on. It's quite tough times, but actually you need a bit of positivity, and this is your positivity zone, as we said. And so you've got to take those opportunities. And as always, we'll be serving up advice, predictions, and a guest this evening as well. That's probably why you're all here this evening, and not to listen to myself and Ian rabbit on, but the guest. A bit of training, I guess, that comes out of it. But above all, we're going to have a bit of fun doing it. Very happy to take questions as we go through. If we don't have any questions, then obviously myself, Ian, and our guests will just be chatting to each other in a random fashion. So that's not a great thing to do. Right, let's see who we've got on this evening. We've got a stack of you on this evening. So let's have a look. Vel's just joined us. Hello, Vel has just joined. Grant's on. Evening, Grant. Jennifer, Julian, Kim, Vicky, Jacqueline, Yvonne, Mr. Wonderful. Someone has logged on as Mr. Wonderful this evening, and he's not fooling anyone. That is a student of ours, and that is Simon. And of course, we have on here, where is he? Nissan Hut Nick is on here as well, and that is Bob. And Bob is into barns. I don't know why he's getting Nissan Huts. Nissan Huts are not really barns, Bob, so you're stretching the truth a little bit. But he comes on with a bit of a crazy name each time. Anyway, he's on board. Debs is on board. Nick's on board. Jackie's on. Emily, Gabriella, Debbie, George, Thomas, Stephen, Peter, Gary, etc., etc. If I don't read your name out, I do apologise. Roma's on, by the way. Roma and Richard, almost certainly good evening to you both. And Deb says, good evening, chaps. She says that up here. Any chance we could go back to Saturday mornings? No, Debs, no. She said that she's missing her bacon sandwiches and she's having an ice lolly tonight instead. Crazy right. Lady.
Poor substitute, Debs. I would personally, no matter what day of the week, I would stick with the bacon sandwich.
Yeah, I would. That's mad. That is mad. And yeah. Gavin says, good evening, chaps. And Marilee says, how's it, dudes? Marilee, that's great. I feel so much younger when you're on. This is, how's it, dudes?
The years are falling away.
It's great. It's great. I'm not sure how I respond to that. Wicked. It's wicked. And hello, I'm here after all, says Yvonne. Oh, well, that's good, Yvonne. I'm glad that hopefully after all was interesting and you're here following it. Anyway, tonight we do have a guest. We do have a guest. And so we're going to be talking about a really interesting subject this evening, okay? Because obviously you like exciting subjects. So we're going to be talking about pensions. I'm ever so sorry about that, but that's the subject that we've got. And obviously we needed someone to come and talk to you about pensions. And that's when we struggled as well, because we thought, well, to get someone who doesn't make pensions boring, someone that can make pensions a bit exciting and talk about SSAS and how it can be interesting for developers. And so that's what we wanted to get. So anyway, we struggled. We seeked high and low. And well, in the end, we got hold of Kevin. We got hold of Kevin Whelan from WealthBuilders. Kevin was available, and that was the starting point. And hopefully, after that great introduction, Kevin will still be there. Kevin, can you hear us this evening?
Can you hold on a minute, Rich? Rick, I'm just licking my lolly and just getting it finished.
Kevin, can you turn your camera on for us, please? I'm glad. Yes, you are there, Kevin. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I just woken up. Somebody said I had to talk about pensions, so I had to wake up.
Good stuff. Well, that is going to be really, really good. So, yeah, Kevin is here tonight, and he is going to be talking about pensions. There's already a question coming in. I love it. Questions in the boxes already. Ian, how are we going to start this thing off and get this whole pensions, I was going to say boring, but it's not boring, is it, Kevin? This is going to be super exciting this evening.
Not more. Let me say this. If you can just master a little bit of time on this, don't press snooze, but pay attention for just a few minutes, you'll get access to all the money you need for any property development deal that you can find that passes your test for due diligence. So if you want to know how to get all the money you could ever need, don't switch off. And it's the thing about this stuff that you've got to pay attention to. So it's finding a little niche and you get all the money you want. So how about that?
Well, look at that, guys. I mean, you would definitely not better switch off now. You will be glued to us until quarter to 8. Ian.
So I think when it comes to pensions, obviously there's kind of two angles of attack really when it comes to development, because I mean pensions and development definitely not boring. They are in many respects a marriage kind of made in heaven, because we've got, on the one hand, we've got people with pension funds who are looking for opportunities to invest, and on the other hand, we've got developers who are looking for money for their projects. So potentially quite a good combination. And of course, many people have pensions that perhaps are in the more traditional type of pension, and you might have heard of SSAS and SIPs and other different types of pension. And I think we've known Kevin quite a while, and the whole story of SSAS is quite a remarkable one if you've not heard it before, in terms of the flexibility it gives you and the things that you can do with it. So Kevin, perhaps maybe you could kick off just telling us a little bit about WealthBuilders, about you, about what you do, and then maybe talk about what a SSAS is, and just give us a bit of a bare bones on the pension side of things.
Sure. Well, let me say that first of all, we'll cover SSAS. It's the sharpest tool in the toolbox for anybody who wants to build wealth. You know, it's just an incredibly powerful thing for you, for your business, and for your legacy. Right. So I'm Kevin Whelan. I'm the founder of a company called WealthBuilders. We do what it says on the tin. We help people create wealth. And what I mean by that is get to a place of being completely financially independent. Now, why is that important? Well, because we're in COVID, we get stock markets going up, stock markets going down, stock markets going all around, like a roller coaster. And roller coasters are all right when you're a kid, but they're not okay when you're a grown-up. They make you feel sick. So it's not good. So what you want to be able to do is get to a place where you can get 8, 9, 10 grand a month coming in from assets. And we teach there are only 7 assets, and we're just going to talk about 2 tonight. 1, pensions, 2, property. And if we focus on those, you'll get enough information to make this 45 minutes worthwhile.
Fantastic. So in terms of, if you're looking at this from the point of view of somebody that's interested in SSAS, who may have heard of it, and what makes a SSAS different, can you just give us the kind of the highlights of SSASs and how come they're so flexible?
Yeah, sure. First of all, to say let's talk about the opposite. The opposite is terrible pensions. Most people in the UK, the reason why 95% of the population don't get to financial independence is because they over rely on 2 things: the pension they either pay in personally or their work, and the stock market itself. And pensions and the stock market are inextricably linked for the most part, but they don't need to be. For most people, it's the biggest pot of money they've got, and they can use that money if they could learn how to take control of it. Instead of giving it to a third party and say, hey, will you look after it? They challenge that tradition and they say, hey, whose money is it anyway? It's mine. So I want to take control. And if you're a business owner, and that's the only qualifying criteria, if you've got a business, and most property people have businesses these days, then you can say to all your old pensions, which were part of your past, and say, I want to grab those, I want to control them and make them part of my future. And my future's in property, and I want to make this money help me get access to more money, because it's just money in a box, but you get to take ownership of the box. So you run it like a business. So if you can do property development, you can run your pension. If you can run a business, you can run your pension. It's just your money. So you get rid of everybody who's helping themselves to profit, and you make that money work for yourself. That's the essence of SSAS. It means small, self-administered scheme. Wins no prizes for marketing sexy language. It's just boring stuff. I get it, but that's the technical language. We call it a director's pension because it's a pension you can direct, but that's the technical term. Small because it's for small businesses. Self-administered basically means you run it, and scheme is another word for pension in law, and that's where the language comes from.
And it's quite a powerful one from a legacy perspective, isn't it, Kevin, in terms of where your pension money eventually ends up after your demise?
Well, yeah, but a pension's for living, not for dying. So let's talk about how developers can get that money and build a life. But yeah, you can invite up to 11 people into your scheme. So that means instead of a one-person thing, you can have 11 or up to 11. Now, that's either a reasonably small business or quite a big family. Right, so you can have a lot of people, which means if you understand that you can have up to £1 million tax-free in your pension scheme. I've got 5 people in mind, wife, myself, 3 kids, all grown up. I've now got £5 million that I can get tax-free. Now, £5 million tax-free is a lot more than £1 million tax-free, and that's the way to do it.
Like it, I like it. What a great start. So if we all volunteer to join Kevin's scheme, we can all get in there. We can all have £1 million of Kevin's money tax-free. That'll be true.
We've only got 6 left though, so we've got to. It's going to have to make a choice.
He's going to have to make
Sorry,
a choice.
I couldn't hear that. I was still laughing at the thought of sharing my millions with you.
You're so harsh. Okay, straight out the blocks. Christopher, good evening. Christopher has got a question in. And by the way, those that have just joined us, Anil's just joined us, Keith Debs is logged on and logged back off again. I don't know what she's doing. Raj and Gareth and Jay. Hello, Jay. Then please pop your questions in the chat box as we go through. Christopher's question is, hi, fellas. Nice, polite start. I like that. He says, I know we can't own residential properties with a SSAS. However, is it possible to buy land and commercial property with funds from a SSAS and build residential apartments to then sell?
Yeah, the answer is yes, you can. So if a lot of people think that, again, the pension is a box that says do not disturb till I'm 65, but you can access it in 2 ways, and Ian kindly hinted at that. Way number 1 is work out what you've got and then work out how you could use it. And I'll answer that question in a minute. And then way number 2 is once you know that these things exist and many people want to take control of that money, they don't want to leave their money in cash because you get next to no interest. They don't want to leave their money in the stock market because it's a roller coaster ride nobody gets certainty from. So what do they want to invest in? Well, more people love property in the UK than any other asset. So if you're good at property and you understand that people are looking for a home for their pension, then or looking for a home to invest the money they've now got control of, you can get access to other people's money. And what I've done for 10 years now is I've been, Cilla Black. God bless her, she's gone. But I've been dating people and matching people with pensions and good developers, put them together, magic happens, they both make money, the investor gets a better return, the developer gets a better return, both parties are happy. Right, let's go back to the question. So the question is, first of all, started from a premise which is incorrect. The premise said, we all know you can't buy residential property, but yes, you can. And how you do that is understand a bit more of the rules. So there's a rule in SSAS, right? So small self-administered scheme. Let's take an example. Our average SSAS investor in WealthBuilders has got about, I'll use a round number, say it's 400 grand, right? Decent sized pot. You can start as low as 40 grand, but let's say it's 400 grand. They can lend 200 grand of that to their limited company, right? So do they have to wait to 55 and be old and grey like me? No, you do not. You could do it at 35, as long as you've got a reasonable sum of money. You lend that money to your limited company, and then you take that money in the limited company and you go and buy resi property with it. Absolutely no problem with that at all. So you can facilitate resi property with your pension. You just can't physically buy it and own it. You can buy land. You can buy commercial property. You can buy shops. You could buy factories. You can buy restaurants, although there's challenges with those things right now because you can't get anybody in them. But anyway, they'll come back, won't they? You can buy old offices and turn them into flats. You can buy pubs and convert them into things. You can buy barns and convert them into things. You can even buy old churches and convert them into things. Normally you go into a church to get converted, and here's a way you can flip that around.
I love it. I mean, that instant humour just tacked straight on the end there. I mean, you could be on the stage.
Couldn't possibly compete with you, Richie.
Hopefully,
I thought you said you were going to do your Barry Gibb impression.
No, I'm not.
Hold on. If you're going to do that, I think we need to see your Scylla.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah. And the audience will probably
fun.
Okay, your turn.
Yeah, I'm not doing Barry Gibb. I was challenged before the show to introduce Kevin in the style of Barry Gibb, but I've decided not to do that this evening. Ian, have we got another question?
We've got one in from Jan, who asks, can you mix different types of funding, say some investment from someone's SaaS and commercial funding? Do they go together?
Yeah, so money is money, right? And you stack it any way you like. It's like Lego. So if you want a bit of SaaS, bit of somebody else's SaaS, bit of commercial funding, bit of something else, you can join it all together. So the skill in this is I know we're having fun here and it's quick fire and so on, but it's serious because it helps you get more deals done. And if you get more deals done, you build more wealth, and that's why it's important to me. So you just have to get creative. So in the same way as you teach people who are perhaps a little bit fearful of learning to be a developer, they like the idea, but they're scared, don't know what to do or what's the first step and what mistakes to make, and the end of a how question in my life, whenever there's a how the hell do I do that? There's always a who knows the answer. So your job is to seek out who's. So if you want to know how to learn to be a developer, seek these guys out. If you want to learn how you can take your old frozen and forgotten pensions and turn them into money for your property, or you want to borrow other people's, we've got a community of 4,000. That's a huge sum of money. And I've got a problem. My problem is there's not enough good developers who tell a great story, who are outstanding in what they do, and who can learn or be willing to learn a little bit about what SaaS is and a little bit about what SaaS investors want. If you could do that, if you're on the other end of this call thinking, I'm a good developer, you can get money. If you want to learn how to be one, these guys will teach you. And then I can plug in, if invited, how you could get access to funding to help that journey carry on.
Fantastic. Jan, hope that helps. I'm sure it does.
Good stuff. Okay. Right, I've got a question down here from Martin. Martin says, great show, guys. That's good. That's good. Probably because you're on, Kevin. We don't normally get these compliments. How long, Martin asks, how long does it take to get a pension transferred over to a SaaS?
Yeah, okay. So pretty much, let's just talk about that. All old pensions, most people have got something in their life. And if you've forgotten it, you can go to a tracing agency in Newcastle called, it's a .gov, get my teeth in, site, which called a tracing agency. And you can find anything where you've lost and forgotten something. All you need is your national insurance number and they'll do the rest to help you find it. Now, assuming you know where it is, you can move personal pensions, SIPs, you can use old, even current work schemes. The only thing that's challenge is if you've got an old defined benefit or final salary scheme, tricky, but can be moved, but certain schemes cannot. Public sector, doctors, dentists, teachers, armed forces, can't move those. And there's good reasons for that, because there's no money to support you, because all the money's paid for by future taxpayers. So there isn't actually a pot there at all. So watch out for that. And that's why the state pension is being kicked back to 67, 68, 69, 70. It'll keep going in that direction. So you can move any pension. How long does it take? It takes about 90 days to create the vehicle. So you've got to apply to HMRC. They give you a license, like a driving license, and they stamp it and go, you now have permission to run your pension scheme. You take that license, or we take it, and we go to your old company and say, we got a license, give us the money. And it takes them a few weeks to send the money. So 3 to 6 months as a max. But when you know that money's coming, you can start planning with what you want to do with it.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Martin, hopefully that has answered that question. If you want to get on with that, Martin, then Kevin's going to give some details out at the end of the show. You, by all means, can contact him. Ian, let's fire another one at Kevin.
I've got one here from Josh, Kevin, does a SSAS require a first charge security over the asset? And if so, does that mean a SSAS won't work where there is commercial lending?
Okay. Right, so 2 questions. Does a SSAS need first legal charge? No, it doesn't. The SSAS can lend money to anything, and it doesn't require a charge. There's just a simple rule. You've got to be prudent, commercial, and secure. There's no D on the word secure, so it doesn't need to be secured. And the other thing, it needs to be, if you're lending to a third party, so you can lend money out, it needs to be an unconnected party, so you can't lend to somebody who's your brother, sister, or business, so blood and business can't do. Or you can lend to yourself. If you lend to yourself, remember I talked about the loan back, 50%, 400 grand, 200 grand, that needs to be secured on something, but it doesn't have to be the property you're buying. But even if it is, you can still get other forms of cash from other lenders to supplement that. However, the most popular way that SSASs and commercial lenders work together is when you buy something. So you buy a plot of land, you buy industrial unit, you buy those things that I mentioned, and then the SSAS buys a portion, and then the lending comes in on top to top up to where you need to be. Now, can you do that in a conventional pension? So if you've got, say, the same person had 400 grand in their personal pension with ABC Insurance and said, hey, I've got 400 grand here. I'd like to buy more of these stocks and shares, please. Will you lend me another 200 grand to go do it? The computer will say, well, no, you're not. But if you've got a SSAS and you go to a lender and say, I'm buying property for 600, I've got 400 in my SSAS, will you lend me 200? They'll say, yes, they absolutely will. So you can get leverage. So 400 turns into 600. So 600 grand's worth of buying power is much more than 400 grand in the stock market, as I said earlier.
Fantastic. Josh, I hope that answers your question.
Good stuff, right. Julian's question. Good evening, Julian. Julian's one of our students. Julian says, can you use your SSAS to fund a deposit on a commercial property? I think we did pick that one up earlier, but let's just answer that one to Julian.
That's easy, yes.
There you go. Look at that, Julian. Nice and simple. Okay, I've heard, this is Jackie, by the way. Jackie, another one straight in. Jackie said, I have heard that a SSAS can lend money at low rates. Probably put something out in the email as well when we invited people. Can you explain how it is able to do this?
Yes, I can, because guess who's the owner of the bank?
Will you explain?
I will explain.
Excellent.
So, right, so if you might, let's take that 400 grand example again. So we've got 400 grand in our SSAS and we want to lend it to our limited company to go and buy some resi property. Right, first of all, who owns the bank? Me. Who chooses the interest rate I want to lend to me? Me. Are there any rules about how much I can charge to lend interest to me? Yes. What's the rule? It can't be less than 1 over base. Okay, now I've got to calculate what's base rate, 0.1. What's 1 over 0.1? 1.1. So I can now borrow money at 1.1%. There's no cheaper money than accessing your own. You can't get that from a lender. You can't get that from a bridger. You can't get that from anybody. You couldn't even get Richie to lend it to you at 1.1. That's the cheapest source of money you can get, unless you've got friends and family giving you money, and that's unlikely.
Good stuff. Excellent, Jackie. There you go. And Julian, hopefully that was useful for you as well. Ian, what's next?
I got one in from Christopher. He says, I read that HMRC closed some SSASs because they weren't investing in anything. Is there a minimum investment amount per year that HMRC require to keep it legal?
Okay, so I understand the question, so thank you for the question. They didn't close the schemes because there was no investment. They closed the schemes because there was no company attached to the pension. So in order to have a SSAS, to get your license, there needs to be a company that sponsors it, right? Sponsoring company, like, propertyCEO or WealthBuilders or ABC Properties, whatever. So if you've got a limited company, as long as that limited company exists, the Inland Revenue will never close it down. Now, if you sold said limited company and left the money there and didn't do anything, they'd say you're not using the benefits of SSAS, you ought to have your money in a conventional pension instead. Now, in all the years I've been doing SSAS, which is now going on for 12 years, we've never seen one single scheme go backwards. Nobody moves back from SSAS to somewhere else. They always keep their SSAS, and all you need to do is if you sell your company, create another limited company, cost you 50 quid, and you keep that company alive, and you can keep going for as long as you like. So the only scheme that would ever close is somebody doesn't know what they're doing.
Okay, let's just do a follow-on from that. That's literally popped in. So let's pick up Vijay's comment here. Can a dormant company, limited company, be a sponsor for a SSAS?
No, because a dormant company is not trading, and you need to have a company that has got an intention. Now, it doesn't have to be trading, it needs an intention to trade. And you can create the intention by getting a letter from your accountant, and we submit a letter from the accountant to HMRC and say, Richie and Ian are thinking about setting up a company. They're thinking about doing this. They've been doing this for a number of years, and we believe they're capable of doing that. Would you please grant them a SSAS? And they go, yes, thank you, job done. So as long as you've got evidence, you need an audit trail. If you got somebody who knows how to do that, like a good mortgage broker helps you find a good mortgage, a good SSAS broker or a good SSAS advisor will help you get a SSAS. Dormant companies, no.
Vijay, hope that answers your question. He says thank you, so it must have done. That's good. And Rob's on, and all Rob's typed in the question box is hi, gents. Hi, Rob.
Hi.
Good evening.
Great to have you on. I think he's put a comma though, to be fair. So I'm anticipating there could be more coming later in the show.
Okay.
I've got one that's come in though. Whilst Rob's thinking of that, I've got one in from Debs. Hi Kevin, when you do your SILA matchmaking, how do you view / assess a new developer, and what do you look for? Is it the deal, the person, who you are lending to, or both?
What a great question.
Amazing question.
Yeah, so we start off by saying, what's your name and where'd you come from? We do that first, and then after we do that, we say, tell us a story.
It is uncanny.
We ask you to tell us the story of your business, because investors buy stories. So if the story of your business is you do something really well, you come from a place of integrity, you've got you've got some kind of a track record, you've got a willingness to create a document to learn what investors think about, and they want 5 different ROIs. And if somebody asks me the question and says, hi Kevin, what are the 5 things that investors really want? I'll tell you, but I don't want to go for too long on any one single question. Now, once we know that and we've got that, we can say your story is investable. And if you and your story and your company are investable, money always flows. Right? But you have to invest in your story. Most developers that I've met, and I've met hundreds, talk to me about the deal. They talk to me about the project. I don't want to hear about the project, I want to hear about you. What do you do? How long have you been doing? Why did you do it? What got you into it? Where do you do it? Who do you serve? What kind of tenants do you have? What kind of outcomes do you have? What are you trying to do it for? Are you trying to build wealth? Are you trying to do something else? Tell me about you. Once I've got that, that's my 1 step out of 7 that I have. And if that's called the resonance test. And if I resonate, we go to stage 2. But if we don't resonate, we never get past stage 1.
Well, that screen doesn't go back and you don't get to pick the person on the stools, do you?
That's it.
Good stuff. Well, go on then. So there's 5 things that people have to tick the box. I'm surprised no one's thrown that in as an immediate question. So I'll ask because they want to know. Give us the 5 things.
Let's give you the 5. They're called ROIs, okay? So, and they're not what you think. So most people think, as developers, all the investor wants is a return on their investment. So they ask me, what's the lowest rate I can get away with to borrow money? And I say, that's a really, really, really bad question. Don't ask me that question ever again. Why don't you ask this question? If I tell you the 5 ROIs investors want, and I show you how to get them, could you deliver that in a document? And if you can get all the money you ever wanted. Number 1, the first thing an investor wants is to know they can trust you and that you treat their money as seriously as you treat your own. And that's called the return of their investment. They want to know, how safe are you, so you can show me how safe am I. Right? That's first. So you got to do that. The second is a return on intellect. What are you going to teach me? What am I going to learn by working with you that I didn't know? Because when I'm investing in the stock market, when I get my statement 6 months later, I'm not really any smarter. When I work with you, what am I going to learn? And they want to know how you do what you do. And you have to be willing to share that. That's return on investment number 2. Number 3 is a return on interaction. I want to be able to have a relationship. You know, I've got no relationship with the stock market. I've got no relationship with cash, but can you help me understand how I can have a relationship that is enjoyable with you? And how are you going to engage me to make me feel that? Then, you know, I want a return on impact. What are you doing and who for? Are you doing something good for society? Have you got a message of you're helping the homeless? Are you helping veterans? Are you helping to provide green property so that, you know, the property's sustainable? What are you doing that's newsworthy? What's the impact you're making in the world? That's not just about making money. Then finally, what's the return I'm going to get on my money? And if you can solve those 5 things, and actually we teach people how to do that and create a document that is both compliant, right? Because you're in the world of money and that's compliance, and compelling. So to complete a compliant and compelling document takes about a month, and we help people do that. And when they do that, they get all the money they need, provided they pass step 1, which is the resonance test. And most don't, because they ask me daft questions like, "What's the lowest rate I can get away with," and things like that. Oh, by the way, Kevin, I love what you had to say, but I need the money next Tuesday.
Yeah. So, guys and girls out there, and some of these are our students, but we call them all our CEOs. So, any CEOs of ours out there, don't embarrass us by ringing him up and asking for the rate. You've got to build up that relationship first of all. So, yeah, please go for that. And by the way, Debs did put in there. She says, "What are the 5 ROIs?" So, Debs, you've got those. Yeah. Okay, good stuff. Can we pick up another question, Ian?
We certainly can. I've got one in here from Josh. Again, I have a small pension pot from a previous employer. What is the minimum amount of pension value needed to make a SSAS worthwhile?
Yeah, it's a good question, but there is no minimum, because we've got the ability to create a SSAS for as low as 0. Because some people start with 0 and they've got a company and they've got profits, and they want to put some of those profits into a tax-free trust fund, which is really what a SSAS is. It's a tax-free trust fund. So they want to put some of that money and build it. And when they put the money in, they get corporation tax relief. So they get tax back from their company. Then when they invest it, it's free of income tax, free of capital gains tax, free of corporation tax, I mentioned, and free of inheritance tax. So it's bloody tax efficient. So as long as you're relatively young, right? Don't know how old this gentleman is, but if you're relatively young, you can start with 0. If you're relatively old and you know when you're going to die, then it's no problem, doesn't make sense. But if you're, you know, if national expectancy for life is 85 currently, and you're 65, it's worth doing, because you've got 20 years of tax-free growth. So, you know, and you can set these things up for as low as probably £1,000 all in. You know, once you've done that, you've got a scheme for life. No fees ongoing that are part of the value. It's just fixed administration, like having a little bookkeeper to do the reporting for you. But typically 40, 50 grand is, you know, where we sort of see people starting. They feel like they want to get involved. If someone's got 2 or 3 grand, it might not be worth it for them. They might not be bothered about it. However, how many people, see if anybody remembers, Richie, how many people can you have in a SSAS? Anybody remember?
You're asking me? Up to 11.
The 11, right. So if you've got 3 grand and you know somebody's got 10 grand and your brother's got 20 grand, then you can put them all together and make it worthwhile. That's
not going to work for me. I don't have a brother. I just have 2 sisters.
You could do it that way too.
Oh, okay.
There's always one, isn't there? I mean, it's always him. I think you've actually also nailed Vijay's question, which was how much does it cost to set up a SSAS? And if I heard correctly, Kevin, the sort of £1,000 order of magnitude?
At the bottom end.
Yeah.
The reason why it's difficult is because a SSAS is a sophisticated vehicle. And in any vehicle, you can have a cheap vehicle. You know, I bought a 5 grand car for my son when he was 17 because I know he's going to ding it. But do I drive a 5 grand car? No, I bloody well do not. I have a more sophisticated car. So the more sophisticated you are and you want to become, the more you have to put into having a vehicle that'll do the job. You're not going to get a £1 pension that will allow you to do a commercial to residential conversion, but it could get you started. And that's all you really need to do. And once I get the chance to talk to someone, how much have they got? What do they know? What they're trying to do with that money? So I had a question this week. I love getting asked questions, right? A question I had wasn't this week, it was a few weeks ago actually. How do I buy overseas property in Colombia? I have no idea how to do that, but I found a way, and now we're creating a SaaS for a guy to buy property in Colombia because he's Colombian and knows the whole process, knows the whole language, and despite the connotations of Colombia, it's a very beautiful country. So we can do that. We didn't know how to do that a few weeks ago, but now we do because we took advice. So remember, whenever you get a how question, the answer is always a who. Find the who, and the how will become obvious. So use these guys. And if you've got any pension questions, I'm definitely a good who.
Fantastic.
I like it. We've got there is a good who. We've got 3 VJs on tonight. So VJ, if you're sat there thinking I never asked that question, it's the other VJ, number 2 or number 3, whichever order you're in, and you can make your own mind up. Okay, let's pick up a question here from Rob. Rob says, I'm having an absolute mare with the internet. I think it's at my end. Yeah, it is your end, Rob. We're absolutely fine. Everyone else here is okay, so it's just you. He says, okay, I also didn't, oh, sorry, this is one that said, hi, gents. So his question, here it is. He's got a whole myriad of text.
Oh, you got the question, yeah.
He says, can I still use SSAS once I've started drawing my fire service pension?
Right, well, I answered that question earlier on. Fire service is public sector pension. You can't use that pension for it.
There you go. Rob, hopefully you've heard that, assuming you're still on with us. Looking at it, I can't. Yes, you are by the looks of it, so that's good.
The fire service pension is a no-no.
Okay.
We've got a linked question, I guess, which is from Yvonne. Can I have a SSAS if I already have an annuity?
Not with that pension. Annuity is basically an insurance policy turned upside down. So a life insurance policy, you pay a small premium, get a large lump sum if you die. With an annuity, you give the insurance company a big premium and they give you a small income until you die. Once you've made that deal, can't break it. So you can change your name, you can change your sex, but you can't change an annuity. Once it's done, it's done. Now that means she's over 60, so chances are she doesn't have any other pensions. But if she did have other pensions, she would be able to do that, but not the annuity money. Or parents, we often get asked questions about, my dad thinks it's a great idea. Okay, what's his pension? Well, he's got an annuity of 5 and 6 a week. No, you can't do that.
There you go, Yvonne. You can't change your annuity, but you can change your sex and your name. So when we see you next, that would be intriguing.
Good luck with that.
By the way, Ranjit's on from Property Investor News.
Okay.
What we get, Kevin, Ranjit comes on. He's only just come on, so he's a bit of a lazy type this evening. He's only literally just joined, and he joins us, and he expects us to give a shout out for Property Investor News so that people go and read Property Investor News. But we don't fall for that, and we're not even going to mention Property Investor News anymore.
Okay, no. Good for you.
No, I won't do that. Okay, Gavin's question. He says, hi, Kevin. Would you be interested in working with new development companies going for their first project?
No.
That was a simple answer, wasn't it?
Yeah. The reason why, and I'm not being facetious, is when you're doing the first of anything, you're just mastering your skill. When you've done the second, you got a bit better. And when you've done your third, you probably nailed it. The only time we had ever worked with a first-time developer is if they were working with somebody else that we respected, who was guiding them, mentoring them, and holding their hands so they couldn't make a mistake, and it was an outstanding deal.
There you go, Gavin. That's giving you a bit of a steer. So after how many projects, typically, would it be do 2 decent projects, and then you might be interested?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, if it's resi, I like to see 3, but with commercial, it tends to be 2.
Okay, Gavin, there you are, something to aim for. Something to aim for. Ian, what's next?
The fastest way, anyway, to get development projects done is to be mentored, to get them through, you know, because you're accelerating yourself. And also the thing that I look for is I'm asking someone the story and they say I'm a developer and say, well, how did you get it? Well, trial and error. I'd say, well, I'm not having you use my investors' money by trial and error. You know, unless you're putting effort into your own education, why the hell would I invest money with you? Just won't do it. I like to see what education people have done. So they should
turns around and said, if Gavin turned around and said that he's been educated by us, which indeed he has, he's being mentored by us, what would you say to him then? That's
even worse.
Yeah,
Gavin, you've got no chance.
And that's the end of the show. Look at that. We've got a question. So Yvonne luckily says that she might be able to use her husband's pension pot there, which is good news, Yvonne. And hopefully you'll be, that means you have to avoid the other changes that Richie mentioned. Got one in here from Christopher. I have a decent sized pension pot with my employer. Just carried out a transfer valuation and it was very good news. Is it better to leave it where it is as my employer is still contributing, or change it to a SSAS as there's the opportunity to build it at a better rate?
That's a great question. Great question. Let me give you the answer to that. There's something, if you've got a company pension, not a final salary, okay, that's different. You'll know that because you'll see it on your documents. But if it's like you're putting in money, company's putting in money, and then off it goes into some fund and stock market. If you ask the question of the provider, you know, it'd be an insurance company typically, can I do something called a partial transfer, right? They'll have a minimum amount of money you have to keep the pot alive. So let's say he's got 100 grand because it's a nice easy number. And they say, Scottish Ec or Scottish Widows or Scottish anybody says, well, the minimum I need is £1,000. You go, okay, I'm going to move 99,000 into my SSAS, assuming I'm eligible for a SSAS, and then off you go and you build that. Meanwhile, you haven't left the scheme. You've still got the employer's money. You've still got your money, and you've still got the life cover that normally goes alongside that stuff. So you protected your family. You haven't risked any of that. And then you roll it over, and next year you built a pot and you go, I'll have another. So you built it to 10 grand. I'll take 9 grand out, leave a grand. And you keep doing that. Called partial transfer. And we do a lot of that.
Okay. Fantastic. Great news for you then, Christopher. Superb.
Let's see if we can get a couple of other quick ones in just to finish off this evening. So Eileen says, what's the best way for developers to find people with SSASs who might be interested in investing?
Find somebody who does blind dating.
Yeah. So I guess, Eileen, the best way there is to speak to Mr. Whelan here, and he will point you in the right direction. I'm guessing you probably knew that, but that is definitely the answer.
Yeah. And we're the only people who do it, right? Look, we've got a thriving community, 4,000 in the community. We've got hundreds of millions. Then it's not our money. I'm not being arrogant. It's their money. But what they're looking to us to is to help them find really great people who are willing to be subject to a bit of rigor and due diligence, you know, and they understand how investment works and they understand how SSASs work, because you can't do everything with a SSAS. You can do a lot of things, but not everything. So we have to spend some time to help you do that. And it doesn't take me long in Resonance to know whether somebody's a good fit. It takes me about 30 minutes. If I have a 30-minute call with anybody, I'll tell them you're not a right fit, or you be a good fit. Let's go to stage 2.
Okay.
So you have to be prepared for a 30-minute question with me, you know, and I'm not easy to convince.
So I can see that. I'm feeling quite scared already. So Eileen, just be careful.
Okay, so
we get a lot of work done, and we do approve a lot of people, right? So you just have to be, but you know, if you've been on, if you ever watched Dragon's Den, people are going to ask you questions, and if you're not prepared, you're going to fall over on your face. So you need to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, all the things. I already told you what I'm going to ask you. Who are you? Where do you do it? How do you do it? How long have you been doing it for? Who do you do it for? Why do you do it? You know, who's your tenant type? What's your profit margin? You know, why do you want private investors? What's that going to mean for you if you do that? I've already told you the answer to the questions. If you listen to the recording, you could probably script all that out and then have a 15-minute conversation with me, all be done and dusted.
Good stuff. So we've got one final question here. This one is from Carol, who says, "I've heard that a SSAS can invest in SSAS can't invest in residential property. Therefore, if it's doing a conversion, how can it avoid ending up owning the building once it becomes residential? Do you need some sort of bridging finance at the end?
Well, I asked, that's a complicated question. It's a good question. I sort of partially answered at the beginning when somebody said, you know, I can't use my money for resi property, but you can. But let's take that specifically because it's a good question. If you do a commercial to residential conversion, I have a principle, and I'm sure that you guys would agree with the principle. I don't look for property for my SSAS. I look for good property deals. Then once you found a good property deal, you work out how your SSAS can help. Now, we already know your SSAS can help, but other people's SSASs can help. Commercial funding can help. So you can always find a way to work out how much do you want your SSAS to do and when is the right time to exit so you don't catch an inland revenue fine. And we know how to do that. And regrettably, in a show like this, I'm not able to give the hows, but I am the who knows how. So what I would say is if is this the opportunity for me just to say how if anybody wants to say hi, or are you going to
go on then? Yes, I think you should, Kevin. How should
that
people
property investor news? I didn't mean to say it, but I'm going to say it. We've got some free resources. So there's some videos of us talking about SSAS, you know, so you can get that for free and take your time to work out if it's a good fit for you. Just send an email to hello@wealthbuilders.co.uk, and I'm sure you can put it in the show notes. hello@wealthbuilders.co.uk, and we'll send you some free resources, including, and tell us, do you want SSAS for you or SSAS funding on the email, or both? And then we'll send you the right videos so you can watch the video and then decide if you want to book a 30-minute call. And if you want to book a 30-minute call, it's either about helping you discover whether you could move all pensions, whether SSAS could be a good fit for you, and whether you'd be eligible or not, or whether you're a developer that could fit our profile and we can work on a good story to try and help you get access to money. So either way, you should get more money if you have a half-an-hour call and you come out the other half an hour, you come out of that feeling like it's a good thing for you to take to another step. Okay, that's all.
Brilliant, that's really good, Kev. We will definitely put those details in the show notes.
Appreciate it, Jen.
Philippe has just joined us on the very last minute, but just Philippe, for you that's just joined, you virtually missed the show. But what I will say, it is up on record. It will be up early next week on YouTube. Go on to YouTube, type in Property CEO, and you'll better listen back to the 5 key things that Kevin wants to see if you're interested to try and do a bit of business with him. Definitely listen back to that. Don't embarrass us by not doing that. And of course, other shows are on there as well. And Kevin, just before we let you go, Ranjit Singh from Property Investor News has actually said, can you please say hello to Kevin for me? He's obviously said that, so we mentioned Property Investor News one more time. So you think Richard must be sponsoring us somewhere, but he's not, I can tell you.
Okay. Say hello to Mr. Bowser for me.
Good stuff. There you go. There you go, Ranjit. You've had plenty of mentions now to clear off. Okay, Kevin, thank you for coming on. That's been absolutely fantastic. Have you enjoyed it, Ian?
I think it's absolutely fabulous. Real education, and I think, yeah, a huge amount of value there for irrespective of whether you've got a pension or whether you're a developer. So no, that's very kind, Kevin. Thank you for coming on the show.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the style. I enjoyed the fun. I enjoyed the sort of, you know, the staccato effect of it. Boom, boom, boom. I thought it was probably one of the most enjoyable social media, you know, podcast interviews, webinars I've done. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Well, can I just say thank you for bringing Scylla with you? That was it's a powerful image.
Barry Gibb. I'm still waiting for that. You're going to sign us up? Are you staying alive?
No, I won't. I won't. But what I will just do very quickly, can you give us a wave? I haven't asked Kevin, but will you give us a wave if you'd like me to get Kevin back again another day? Because I know there's quite a few questions we didn't answer. Yes, lots of hands up. Kevin, will you come back another day for us?
I'd be delighted.
Good stuff. Kevin, thank you very much. We're going to bid you farewell before we sign off the end of the show, and we'll get you back another time. So thank you very much for joining us this evening.
That's all right. Thank you. My lolly's all melted now. I'm really sorry about that.
See you later, mate. Thanks very much.
Yes. Wow.
That was good, wasn't it? That was good.
We learned a lot there. We learned a lot of stuff there. We learned that where there's a how, there's a
who.
Hey.
Good stuff.
It's all good.
Okay, guys, we're running close to time. We don't want to run over normally that far. So very quickly, first of all, next week's show is at a slightly earlier time of 6 o'clock. Our guest is Ian. Do you want to just announce our guest next week?
Cara Moore, so mindset specialist extraordinaire. We know all too well that mindset is one of the biggest blockers that people have when it comes to most things in life. Property development is no exception. So it should be a very interesting session with Cara, who is a very highly qualified life coach, mindset coach, and we'll be picking her brains.
Good stuff. So that's next week, a slightly earlier time of 6 o'clock, only because I've got another commitment to another show that I'm a guest on, which is the Reading Property Meet at 7 o'clock. I'll let you know that one. I believe the tickets are free for that one. So if you want a double helping of some Property CEO next week, come on to our show at 6, and at 7 you can go on to the Reading Property Meet. Look out for the details on social media, and you can get on to that. And just really, as we sign off, please, in the chat box, let us know if you've enjoyed the show. It's always nice to see the comments in there as we finish off, because it makes a difference to us. We put this on for you guys, and it's good if you've enjoyed it. So any comments in the chat box will be really good. And just announce on there, someone's saying, can you give us the links for the replay? Either pop onto our website, propertyceo.co.uk, and you'll see them on there on webinars, or probably easier, just go to YouTube, type in Property CEO, go to our YouTube channel, and they'll be up there. This week's show will be up early next week. And let's have a look. VJ says an educational webinar.
Wow.
The second VJ says, thank you both. It was a wonderful session. What else? Julia says, great show, very sassy. Oh, I like that.
Like what you did there.
Very informative, says Christopher. Mr. Wonderful, who's Simon actually, says, nice one, guys. Thank you, Kevin, says VJ. Cheers, says someone else. Sorry, they're all popping up here. Jacqueline says, really great listening to Kevin tonight. What about us, Jacqueline? What about us? Come on. Great evening tonight. Thanks, Richie and Ian, says Ahmed. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you all. See you next week, 6 o'clock at a slightly earlier time. Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.